my dad was myself and Garrett's dad from ages, let's just say 10 to basically right before we went to high school. So it's
Right
pretty
on.
cool.
So is your dad like pretty involved in like the lacrosse scene out there, or?
Yeah, my dad was a youth coach for myself and my brother. So he played college ball at Geneseo, but
Okay.
was never a college coach or anything like that. But he was super involved with youth lacrosse. He was on the board and all that type of stuff.
Right on. So is that kind of how, I guess, so we always ask people, how did you get started in the game?
I mean, yeah, so my dad is the one that introduced. I remember it was like second grade, 8 years old or whatever it was. I came home from school one day and there's a lacrosse stick waiting on the couch. And I was just kind of like, what's this thing? And my dad and I, went outside to have a catch. And it's kind of ironic. He rocked me in the face on my first pass. And I went home, went back inside and cried and was like, kind of done with this. That's not for me. And then, stuck with it and just kind of everything fell into place.
Right on. Right on.
Yeah, so I guess, you obviously grew up in, in a kind of a hotbed area for lacrosse, and like, just to give you a perspective of like where Austin and I are from, like I'm 34 now, and I probably until about 5 years ago had to explain to people like what lacrosse was. They're like, "Oh, you're a lacrosse coach. What's lacrosse?" And so, what kind of what's the culture like just growing up in a place where, like dads and grandpas and uncles and aunts and, everybody has like maybe not played, but they've been exposed to it since like the day when they were born.
Yeah, I mean, that's like you kind of hit the nail on the head with that. I kind of compare Long Island lacrosse similar to football down south, where, lacrosse is kind of the main sport on Long Island. And, we get a little bad rap sometimes. People think we're lax bros and all that type of stuff. And don't get me wrong, there are a ton of lax bros. But it's just sort of such a popular sport there, where some of my high school games were the most packed stands I've had throughout college. It's kind of just such a tight knit community as well, especially in Long Island. When you think of hotbeds, you think of Long Island and Maryland, like that Baltimore area. Yeah. So there's so much talent now spread throughout Long Island where you can go watch Garden City versus Manhasset. And you sometimes, if you never watch the sport, you could think that's a top level Division I game or a professional game.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's like one of the biggest differences, I think, like in hotbed areas too, like you said about just high school games having like full stands. Like I think, here with hockey in Minnesota, like, there, like you'll have 1,000 people at some games. You'll have NHL scouts in the stands. I think it's maybe similar where there's college coaches recruiting high school games. It's a big, big rivalries, things like that. And it's got to be just such a different experience. I mean, when I personally started playing, it was still a club sport at my high school. So like we might have had a few close friends come and check it out because they had nothing else to do, but it wasn't like going to the game. Like it wasn't really a big, a big thing. So I think PMAC maybe just got kicked out here. So I'm inviting him back in, but yes,
Sorry, my internet's crap. So I just connect phone.
Yeah, and so
how is your guys' reception?
You cut out and had to be readmitted, but it like I think it's I don't know.
Okay, yeah, like it's been so spotty for me.
Yeah.
Like
but I guess, did you kind of what's your path, I guess? Did you like where did you play like after high school? Like and obviously you're coaching at St. Lawrence now, so kind of guide us through kind of how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so I played my college ball up at Plattsburgh. So Plattsburgh's about 2 hours east of St. Lawrence. So, I kind of been in that North Country area in New York the last, 6 years of my life. And people tell me that I'm crazy with negative degrees in the winter. And I'm sure it's where you guys get out there in Minnesota as well. But, being from Long Island, it's just so different. I remember my senior year of high school, people like when they'd ask, "Oh, where are you going to go play your college ball?" And I say Plattsburgh. And I think 95% of the people go, it's cold there, right? And like, yeah, I know it's cold there. But so I played at Plattsburgh for 3 years, actually. So it's a little bit of an interesting story. My freshman year, I kind of just got dejected from the game and, kind of lost my passion and kind of lost that drive. And because I would just see some of my friends from high school that, weren't playing college sports and were doing all like the fraternities and all that big stuff at like these big time universities. And part of me, I think I had like a couple bad practices and like a couple bad weekends in a row. And I was just getting homesick and I was just kind of feeling like, I don't think this is for me. Lacrosse has been a part of my life since third grade until now. Maybe it's time to throw in the towel and experience something different. And it, wound up being like one of the worst and best decisions of my life. I till this day I regret quitting. I regret quitting on my boys and all that type of stuff. And I remember vividly so I quit the end of first semester, and second semester is one of the first days back. And one of my buddies like, hey, come to the dining hall, all the guys are here. And they came right after practice. And, I was in my dorm room, like playing Call of Duty or whatever it was. And I kind of walked over and I saw all the guys in there, and I took 2 steps in and walked right out the door. Cause I just felt so just embarrassed and kind of ashamed that, I quit on all these guys to just kind of pursue like these delusions of grandeur that, kind of came to fruition after I realized that, lacrosse is still my passion. I still want to play this. It's kind of a funny story. I saw one of my assistant coaches at the pizza place one time, and, he thought I was leaving already, and he kind of looked at me and goes, oh, RJ, thought you left. And that stung. That really stung. And, I missed playing from the first day I quit until my first practice back. So I kind of made the decision, and we went through a coaching change as well. So the head coach that I left the team under went on to Western Connecticut, where he's the head coach now. So we got a new coach, and, I kind of reached out to him, and 5 years, 6 years later, whatever it is now, I remember he's like, I appreciate you reaching out, and I know you were on the team in the fall, but don't think that I won't cut you your first practice. And I was like, I need to work hard in the off season. And, I did, I kind of accepted the fact that he made me a tryout, even though all those guys were my friends. Like a part of me was a little bit embarrassed where he kind of read the roster and there was like tryouts and he listed my names, but that kind of also, lit a fire under my ass at the same time.
Yeah, that is an interesting story. And I'm glad you shared that, mainly because one thing that we try to because we run a club, and part of, for a lot of people that play in our club, getting recruited and going to play in college is a goal of theirs, kind of part of the reason they do it. And a lot of times in the conversation, like we go into these recruiting meetings and with the parent and the player, and it's like, like kind of what are your goals? It's like, well, I want to play at these big time places. And you kind of have to pull them back a little bit and say, like, do you understand what the commitment is? Like, do you love the game enough? And I think we really, at least I do, and I think PMAC as well, but I know that I really try to like be transparent with people of like playing lacrosse in college, regardless of the level that you're at, is a much different commitment level than even at playing at a really good high school team.
100%.
And it's like, you have to love the game and you have to love everything about the game, not just Saturdays playing in the games, but there's so many other aspects to it. And like it is like even a guy that grew up with lacrosse, family played lacrosse, you burned out too, just because at a certain point it's just like, do I really love this? But it's nice to hear, like, obviously you had a good end to your story where you're like, I really do miss this. I just have to maybe change my attitude a little bit on how I'm viewing my experience. And then, you were able to get through that. And luckily that the new coach and stuff gave you an opportunity. But, we hear that a lot of players thinking they want something and then they realize how much work it actually is. And it's like, if you don't really love the game, then it doesn't really, there's too many other options in college, like you said, of like fraternities, clubs, social things that you can be doing, where if you don't like going to practice, you don't like lifting, that kind of stuff, then you're going to find other things to do with your time.
Yeah.
Sorry, Austin. Yeah. 100%. Oh, sorry, man.
Oh yeah. Sorry. I have a question for you, to kind of piggyback off Ted, every level is different. Like I played at Detroit Mercy, like our schedule is going to be different than, D2 Lindenwood, to, where you played at Plattsburgh. What what was, kind of like the grind, for you guys? Like, what was your guys' process and schedule? Because I think that's another thing as we talk to players. It's like, oh, I want to play at, name your school, here. But like they don't know the schedule and the time, and they're not putting in anywhere near that kind of effort now. Like, are you going to want to put that in when there's, 100 different college distractions, and things going on? Are you going to want to, put in that time and effort?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I played at a good Division III school where, we cracked the top 20 a few times. I won a SUNYAC championship my sophomore year, went to the NCAAs, but, we were a Division III school. And, when you kind of talk about the hardest part, the first thing that comes to my mind is fall ball. So fall ball is like, if you can sum it up in one word, it's a grind. So, at a Division III school, we were doing 2-a-days in fall. So we were waking up to run sprints at 6 o'clock in the morning, but that means you're up at 5:15, whatever it is, just to kind of get up, do what you need to do, and mentally prepare yourself. Because we knew we were running sprints at 6 a.m. It wasn't like, oh, we're gonna practice a little bit. There might be some conditioning. That's just kind of such a mental hump that you need to get over. It's where you got to wake up at 5:15, and every time your alarm goes off, you kind of say to yourself, all right, sprints are coming my way. I got to do this. This is what I need to do for myself and the betterment of the team. And that's just kind of one of those things where a lot of guys will fizzle out at. Fall ball kind of makes the man, as my coach would say. But that was, getting up at 5:15 and then doing sprints for hour 15, whatever it is, being done at 7:30, then having a full day's worth of class, and then going right back onto the field for practice at, typically 6 or 8 o'clock at night, whatever that was, depending on, the soccer teams, whenever they were done. That's when we do a little bit more lacrosse oriented stuff. And, that's just fall ball. And that's a grind for 3-4 weeks, whatever it is. And that was just, I honestly sum that up as the toughest part. During the season, it's you practice 100 times or whatever it is, but you have games mixed in there. You got scout practices, lifts, all that type of stuff. But, in fall ball, you got to mentally prepare yourself that the next 4 weeks, I'm sure everyone can say they're not fun, but, you're with your boys, you're with your teammates, you're getting better every single day. You kind of got to really be mentally tough. That was something my college coach, Joe May, always preached, was mental toughness. He would always say we might not be the best skilled team, which we weren't, but, we're always going to be the best mentally tough team out there, because we're the team that's running sprints at 6 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday while other teams are sleeping in and, practicing at 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, I think too, like the fall ball thing, especially for freshmen coming in, because you just have no idea, what that is going to be like the mental strain, and obviously the physical too, but on top of like trying to figure college out, like your parents aren't around anymore, you live in a dorm, like where do I go get lunch, like where's my classes, like I've never had this much like homework on my own, like all these things of just a college student, on top of your like you have this big gorilla staring you down every morning of 6 a.m. sprints are coming, and like your mind is going to be fixated on like, okay, I got to get through that. But then it's like, okay, I got through it. Now I have the rest of my day that I have to deal with. And I think that's just student athlete in any sport. But even, but especially as freshmen coming in, like that's the true test, I think. And PMAC might be able to add a little bit on how, I don't know, at Division I. I mean, do you do that kind of, I know you did that in fall as well, but do you do that the whole time, or how does that differ?
Fall ball at Division I is hell. It is like RJ said, it fizzles people out. It tests you mentally, emotionally, physically. And yeah, like your freshman year too, it's like you don't know any of the sets, you don't know any of the guys, you barely know the coaches. You've got this big new strength guy who's killing you in the weight room. You've got different tests and different conditioning, and it's fall ball freshman year. It it asks you if you really like lacrosse and how much lacrosse you like. So yeah, no, it's
sure.
yep. And at Division One, it's not just 3 or 4 weeks. Sure, you're on the it's longer on the field, but then your lifting and stuff goes basically the whole semester until like finals.
Yeah, and I'm sure at a place like what was the school called again? RJ, I apologize, that you played at. Pardon?
Plattsburgh.
Plattsburgh. A team that's in the top 20, uh, a team that has a tradition, a strong program. I know that by Division III rules, they say like organized practices end after 4 weeks or 16 practices. But my guess is that even though it isn't quote unquote mandatory, that there was stuff that you were being required to do all year round. Maybe captains led it, or it was just like, here's your packet of things you have to be doing, and you can't not do it because there's too many good players.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I would say from, your first week on campus, maybe you give the new guys a couple days to settle in, move their stuff in, kind of get acclimated to the school a little bit. But then, I would say right after that, captain's practices are starting, where it's not like you're just kind of picking it up, throwing the ball around. It's like it's intense scrimmages where we divide the teams up pretty evenly, and we scrimmage hard for an hour. And it wasn't, what you'd think a captain's practice would be, kind of just pepper in the cage, throwing the ball around, maybe doing a little bit 6-on-6. We took it really seriously. And then kind of after fall ball was over, since Division III can't really mandate anything after that, and our coaches did a good job of kind of keeping that separation between the season and the off season, we the captains and senior leaders, upperclassmen leaders really took it upon themselves to get lifting groups going. So we would make sure the guys are in the weight room, minimum 3 times a week, where we made a sign-in sheet. We left it at the gym, making sure our guys were, not so much put in the work on the field, but doing the work in the weight room as well.
Yeah, that's cool. I think at the end of the day, I shouldn't say every, but most, competitive athletes want to be part of programs that, just because quote unquote mandatory practice is over doesn't mean we're stop, the work is stopping. And, especially with the talent level of college lacrosse on the East Coast, like if you're not doing that year round, like you're just not going to be competitive in your conference, in your area, certainly not, on a national level. I guess I kind of want to transition a little bit into your coaching. So you're at St. Lawrence, you're a coach, also at the Division III level. What kinds do you guys run in the program? Similar I don't know much about the program, so maybe tell us a little bit about your program, and then maybe how compare and contrast a little bit from the stories that you were telling about your playing career.
Yeah, so I'll just give a little background. St. Lawrence is like kind of a pretty highly touted Division III program. We're always, for the last, to my knowledge, 10 or 15 years, we're always in that top 10, top 15 range. If we necessarily don't win the Liberty League, we're getting a crack at the NCAA through an at-large bid. We've had head coach Mike Mahoney, who's been there for, I think it's his 24th year. I can go on and on about Coach Mahoney. He's just kind of an absolute leader of men, where he doesn't get respect through yelling at guys and kind of being a drill sergeant on the field. He gets respect through how he carries himself and how he treats his players and program, with just, the utmost respect and the utmost passion that he has for his players. Then we also have assistant coach Tom Ryan, who is a box legend. He's if you Google Tom Ryan, it'll come up like Tom Ryan or so-and-so, who's the best American box player of all time. So he's kind of our offensive guru that we have here. And he puts such a great offense into our program, where it's such a box American field type of hybrid, where I think that gives us an advantage.
Yeah, you got to look up the picture of Tom Ryan on the on your guys' staff. Legendary mustache. And is he rocking this stash 365 days a year, or what's the stash situation?
Yeah, he's got a mustache that's it's going to go down in history. It's pretty top notch.
This is an all-time stash.
It's coming off soon. So we just did. So I still
Coming
got
off?
my average stash going right now, but we did Mustache Madness for Headstrong.
Oh
Our
yeah, I
team,
love that.
yeah, our team actually came in 10th in the country. We were really proud of our guys for raising. It was just a couple dollars under 10 grand.
Oh
But
wow.
so Coach Ryan, as an incentive, made a page where it would, yeah. If you look at that, that's an awesome mustache.
Sorry to cut you off, but this guy, this look right here, it looks like he has a laboratory where he will come up with offensive concepts like Erlenmeyer flasks and like test tubes, and it comes out like this, like some sort of hybrid offense that it's probably impossible to stop. This guy's probably forgotten more lacrosse 15 times over than I've ever learned in my life. Probably.
Yeah, coach. Like I said, Coach Ryan is an offensive guru. I mean, we share an office together. I mean, it's pretty sweet. We jam out to like Grateful Dead, Fish, like 8 hours a day in the office, and he's coming up with these offensive schemes that are just, like it takes me, a couple looks and a couple practices to understand, but he just comes up with these offensive sets and plays that are just, honestly, it's pretty cool to watch happen.
You guys hiring at all? Sounds like fun. They might have to move out there and get a job.
Yeah, we'll get a spot.
Yeah.
Another question about, just because I was looking at your stuff in your page. He's listed as a consultant in like Tenacity Lacrosse. Any reason for that? Any story behind that?
So it's a bit confusing. Sometimes people won't think he's a coach when he looks on it, when he's our offensive coordinator and such a integral part in, St. Lawrence's cog. But he's listed as that because he kind of has a couple jobs throughout St. Lawrence. He works with our team. He'll work with the women's team a couple days a week, helping them out. And then he also does sports psychology as well with the school. It's pretty cool. He'll meet with athletes that, just have, I don't like sports anxiety or whatever it is going on.
Yeah.
He'll meet with them, and, he has such a different outlook when it comes to sports. He's a big book guy as well. And, what he'll do with our team is we'll do these team readings with these books. Last year, we read this awesome book called The Obstacle is the Way, and we'll break them up, the team. I think it's like 8 or 9 groups, a handful of guys to a group, and, they'll read X amount of chapters we assign them to, and they come up with a presentation and they present it to the team. So it's just a cool way of taking lacrosse off the field lacrosse stuff and really expanding it. Not so much, team bonding, whether it's like bus trips, going out to dinner, whether, all that type of good stuff that I'm sure everyone's program does, but it's just some cool stuff that kind of gives us a little mental advantage, I think.
No, yeah, that's awesome. That's great inside information on what you guys are doing and stuff. And no, that's super cool.
Yeah, and our guys love it too, which is awesome. Sometimes I think back, like, if like my coach is like, hey, I want you guys to read this book. Some guys are like, come on, like, I don't want to read a book. I got to read for biology later, whatever it is. But, our guys love it. And, they'll give these awesome PowerPoint presentations, add some humor into it, take some subtle shots at guys too. But, it's a ton of fun.
Yeah, no, super cool. Super cool. That's sweet.
And it sounds like a pretty, intensive program, but very cohesive. And it sounds like it just, the way you guys conduct yourselves, really the culture is there to just be really together, and all the aspects of team, like you said, on and off the field. Are you guys doing 2-a-days for fall ball? Are you, do you have a pretty intense fall schedule? Like, kind of what is your, just because the reason I'm asking is mainly because we have, our players that listen to this, and, we like to expose them to different types of colleges, levels, and kind of what's happening and what they could expect.
Yeah, so we don't do the 2-a-days here. So this fall is a little bit unique, honestly, not just for our program, for everyone here at St. Lawrence. So due to COVID and all that type of stuff, St. Lawrence broke the school up into trimesters for this year. So for fall semester, they only admitted 1,600 out of 2,200 roughly. So we only had our freshmen and our seniors here and a handful of juniors. So we didn't have our full roster, and it sucked. There's so many sophomores in the rest of the junior class that are at home working jobs, getting better on their own, just absolutely chomping at the bit to be back up here. And it's just tough not having them this fall, not so much for, oh, we're missing him because he's such a great midfielder. It's, we miss so and so because he's just such an important person on this team. He kind of brings the juice to every practice, and just kind of his presence here every day is just duly missed. So it's tough not having, almost half the team here this fall. But so once we moved through the protocols, the first couple practices were non-contact, just kind of individually based stuff, where we broke them up into 3 groups of 8, something like that, where we did half an hour sessions with them. And it was just stick work. And, at first we were so hyped to be back on the field. And, it's just kind of like our guys are like, when someone's run down the field, you're going to have to like, whoa, pump the brakes. You can't hit them. I know you want to like make some contact right now, but we got to follow the rules and do all that type of stuff so we can move on. And, we eventually did get to move on to the phases where we were able to do full practices.
Yeah, it's tough right now for everybody, and college. College has an additional element of, I don't want to say bureaucracy. That might not be the right word, but there isn't as much flexibility because they can't. College can't let lacrosse players or athletes do one thing and then other people do another thing. And everybody's got to follow the same rules. So it's going to be strict. It's going to be more strict than maybe even like a high school, or as more certainly than club, what we're doing. But, in a typical year, are you guys just getting after it for your 16 practices and then lifting, or, like what does that look like? Like, let's assume COVID wasn't there and it was just a normal year.
Yeah. So in a typical year, we'll still do the same amount of practices, typically go 3-4 days a week, whatever it is, depending on how the coaching staff wants to spread out the fall. And then, so we technically can't mandate lifts in the fall with Division III stuff, since it's, you only get X amount of days, and it's kind of like we, leave it up to the guys to go lift on their own. And, our guys are super into their strength conditioning, their fitness, which is kind of awesome that we don't need to harp at them for that. So, I walk into the gym to work out, you'll see 4 or 5 guys in a St. Lawrence Lac shirt anytime. But, we'll do the 16 practices, whatever it is. And then at the end, we'll do like a trash can tournament, some fun stuff. Then like the guys will run their own box league.
You guys get a lot of Canadian players then, just by where you are?
We have one Canadian on our team this year. He's a freshman from Nova Scotia. But to my knowledge, prior to I was there, I think it's just been a handful of guys.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, we love box lacrosse here. It's starting to get a little bit more popular. I think more people are. You would think that every like hockey player in Minnesota would want to play box lacrosse, but it has taken a while for it to catch on. But we've found that like the kids really enjoy playing box just because it's continuous. There's not as much, it's more free flowing. The ball stays in play, all the things that everybody's always heard about box, but it's cool to hear that, like, even at the college level, that the sort of the pickup style box league, but it's not necessarily organized by the coaches, but the players are doing it. And I'm sure it's just as competitive, it's like, it's not like, oh, well, there's no trophy at the end, so like, we're not going to try. Like, I'm sure it's 10 times more competitive just for bragging rights. And like, that's, in my opinion, kind of building a passion for the game, because they're just playing lacrosse and they're not thinking necessarily about like, okay, like, what is the personnel? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? X's and O's. They're just getting better and competing. And I think we're hearing a lot more college programs doing that. I wonder if it's going to ever translate into high school. I know in high school you still have a lot of multi-sport athletes and things, but we see a lot of high schools here do captains practice off-season programs where they're in a dome and they get coaches, and they're like, outside hire coaches. We've done them, through our business, and it's like, okay, we got to put all these things in, and we have to work on these skills. And I'm like, man, after doing that for a few years, I'm like, we could just get the box, open up the box and let them play, and they'd probably be better off at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky to have a indoor facility. It's not grass or turf. It's kind of like a astroturf type of thing. But we're lucky to have that. I mean, it's freezing cold here during the winter, and honestly, towards like today, it snowed a couple inches. But so we're lucky to have that kind of indoor facility where it's not on a gym floor where guys are risking getting hurt or anything like that. But we're lucky to have that, and our guys just love to play box. It's just kind of a tradition that we have here as well, where just box is just kind of always implemented in the roots of the St. Lawrence program.
Right on. Ted, have we had a college coach on yet? Is he our first one? Oh, we've had Colin. We had Colin.
Yep. So he's the second one.
So I'm interested to kind of ask you, as a young, coach, but not, not even that. I guess your age doesn't have to do with my question, but as a coach, in D3, on the East Coast, what is your recruiting process on your side of things? We talk to a lot of high school guys, we talk to a lot of club people, flipping it to your side of things, what are you looking for? What would, if our guys wanted to go to Lawrence, them getting themselves organized, to become a, recruitable athlete to you guys, what are you looking for, and what should they be doing? And what's kind of your process as a college coach?
Yeah, I mean, we actually have what are they, 21s. We actually have a 21 from Minnesota that's going to be an incoming freshman next year, Matt Dowden.
Oh, Dowden, don't you?
Yeah. He I've I've coached. Well, I've worked with him for a long time. Coached him when he was like 12, 13, and I don't coach him anymore on a team, but comes and trains at our facility. But he I thought he was going somewhere else, but
Dowden was going to High Point and then decommitted, and he kind of came in late to our recruiting process, and we got him on campus for a visit. He's a great kid, comes from a good family. His dad's a St. Lawrence alum as well, and that helps a lot. So we gave him a roster spot, and he took it right away, and
nice.
He's someone we're very excited about coming in next year.
Yeah, he's a good player, a good kid.
Yeah, but Austin, going back to your question, kind of, what we look for is, it's not just so we, have you ever heard the term, you peel back the onion, we're not so much the guy that's going to go down the alley and rip a shot. That's going to catch everyone's attention. But we also look for how do they interact with their teammates? How do they interact with their coaches? I like to show up, 10, 15 minutes before the game starts, because I like to see how they are in warmups, how they are with their coaches, like, not necessarily that if kids got a bad attitude or something like that, but I just kind of like to take a deeper dive with the kid. And at St. Lawrence, we're a pretty elite academic school as well. So academics are huge with our guys. So it helps a lot now with these recruiting booklets that are like 6 inches thick, whatever, when you go to a tournament now. And it helps when they list the kids' GPAs and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily like kind of cross guys off immediately, but it just kind of helps us filter out through the process, because we want guys that are, committed to their academics, and they're going to be committed to their academics when they come here as well. But so coming from Plattsburgh, it's honestly a complete 180 when it comes to guys that are on the team that I played with to the guys I coach now. Plattsburgh's a state school, and half my team was from Long Island, which was honestly great experience. I get to see some of my best friends all the time when I go back home. And it's a lot of public schools, you get a handful of private school kids here, but now at St. Lawrence, it's we recruit heavily private school kids. We have a very big hotbed in that suburban Boston area. We get a lot of kids from the prep and private schools in New England, like Millbrook, Kimball Union, Hotchkiss, all those kind of top prep schools, private schools on the Northeast coast.
Yeah.
So to dive a little bit deeper into like Lawrence, what, like, are you guys do you have like a awesome business school, big on sciences, engineering, what, is there like a big popular major or, things?
Well, I would say the big major with our team specifically is business. So at St. Lawrence, it's called Business in the Liberal Arts, where it's kind of, you have that chunk of business that you're going to learn, and then you can pair it with something else, which I think is a big attraction. We have a lot of business and economics guys, but then we'll also have business and environmental science guys on our team as well. So that's, I would say business is, business is a huge major at every college, but we have such a great business school. We have, I think 2 guys on our team last year, and I think it's 1 this year that were bio majors. One of them is our starting LSM, who's a neuroscience major. Kid's an absolute genius.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's the thing too, like, and I'm glad you touched on it. Like, obviously St. Lawrence, is an elite academic school, but even no matter where you play, academics has to be a piece of the puzzle. And I think it's just, I think sometimes maybe, players forget that, like, okay, you're going to be playing lacrosse 2 hours a day, but you're going to be a student at the school the other 22 hours of the day.
Mhm.
And it's, how do you like, is the, like, how do I want to phrase this? Like, is the academic workload that a player is going to have there? Like, is it, like, I know you recruit heavily with private schools. Is it because they're going to be more equipped with, like, a curriculum? Like, they're going to have more experience with the workload that they would have when they get there? Or is it just, those are the types of kids that are looking at your school? Like, is there a reason for that?
I would say it's a healthy mix of both. We have a handful of public school kids on our team as well. Not to knock public school. I went to
Yeah.
public school for
Yeah. No,
high school, college, all that type of stuff. But I think it's financials are a big reason as well. People that go to private schools and prep schools are a little bit more financially equipped.
Yeah.
St. Lawrence does a really good job of academic scholarships for students deserving of those. But I think it's just, we kind of found that niche hotbed of, like I said before, with that greater Boston area and then those Northeast private school kids. And like academics is a huge part with us. I don't think that anyone feels so, drowned in schoolwork or overwhelmed. I think our guys do a really good job of balancing athletics and academics. They're in our athletic facility. We have like this cafe with like a bunch of tables where students can, hang out and do homework. And then it's where our offices are. So, every time I go to fill up my water bottle, get a sandwich, whatever it is, I'll see guys grinding, doing homework at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday or 4 p.m. on a Thursday, just random times throughout the day. Our guys are always grinding, doing their schoolwork, which is just so great to see where we never really have issues of guys, falling. Like, there's guys that fall behind academically, and that happens to everyone, but there's no issues really of guys like failing a ton of classes, not going to class, doing all the wrong things, where I feel like our guys come in to St. Lawrence just super equipped to, kind of hit the ground running. And once they adjust to the college lifestyle, just kind of be prepared when it comes to academics.
Yeah. So, one thing I did kind of want to ask, and PMAC kind of asked a question about, like, what are you looking for? How do you recruit? Are you guys the type of school that, if a kid drafts an email and sends his film, are you guys going to have an initial conversation with them? Or are you guys kind of have your big board of people that you're looking at, and it's kind of like, hey, we're after these 20 guys, and that's, we're just going to focus on them. Like, how does like the kind of the influx work?
Yeah. So, I mean, we get a ton of emails, every day. I'll probably get 5, 6, 7. And then in times where guys aren't in season, especially over the summer, your email gets flooded. I'm sure that's with countless other programs, but we'll make like a Excel sheet of all the guys that email us, and we'll divvy them up by position, school, all that type of stuff. And we'll never be the school to over recruit. That's just kind of not who we are. We're not looking to bring in 20 something guys a class, where that's why, like I said before, like, we peel back the onion. We want guys that are going to be at St. Lawrence for 4 years. Things come up, guys transfer, guys walk away from the sport, and that's natural, but we're looking for the guys that are in it for the long haul. So we'll bring in 11 to 13 guys per class. We're not going to bring in 20, 24, kind of like where you get that saturated over recruitment with some schools.
Yeah, I know we in the Midwest, just because we've personally had experience with it. There's certain teams that have rosters of 70 or 80 guys. And it's like, whatever. Like, I'm not saying that's wrong. Like for them, that might be the way they want to do things or how they're instructed to do things from their institution. But, that's a lot of people on a team. And, it's hard to me, it's like, are all 70 of those guys really a good fit? Like, is that like, at what point does it not work? And, sometimes players don't even realize that you're on the team, but you're not, because they only dress 25 or they only take 30 on the trips because of budget. So like you can't bring 70 guys on a trip. And so, that's good to hear that it's like, if you're getting an offer from St. Lawrence, it means that you've checked a lot of boxes kind of after the whole, yeah, okay, this guy can play lacrosse. Um, are there like specific events that you like to go, or you found success recruiting at, or it's kind of maybe a staple on your circuit every year? Or do you really work off a prospect day? Like, what's like the kind of the big go-to for like how you're seeing guys play live, like in a normal year? Obviously these last couple, seasons have been weird, but
Yeah, I mean, I would say like, from all three of us on the coaching staff, we kind of look at it as like a divide and conquer type of thing where we'll all hit the ground running with all the tournaments we go to. All the tournaments in the Northeast are, awesome. You get a ton of great talent. And then this summer was a bit different. I went to probably four. I was fortunate enough to see some lacrosse this summer, which was awesome. And, you showed up to a tournament and, X team wasn't here because they backed out because of COVID or whatever it was. And that kind of became a recurring theme with a lot, not to blame those club teams or anything like that, but it was a bit hard to find like a tournament where there was a ton of talent this summer. It was always such a healthy mix of guys that fit our programs and like guys that didn't. That's what we saw a lot. But, I would say some of the top tournaments that I love are the NLF, which I just went to this past weekend. Elite 100 this summer was awesome. So that was changed a couple times. Those guys were awesome. They worked around, COVID restriction, all that, where it was from Massachusetts, another place in Massachusetts, and they moved it up to New Hampshire. So for me, it's just like, just tell me where I need to drive and I'll be there. But I think that was some of the best talent that I saw this summer. And then this fall, I went to the 1% showcase, which is through like my lacrosse tournaments, if you guys have ever heard of those guys. So those guys run a ton of stuff on the East Coast, but the 1% showcase was awesome. The title lived up to its name, where it was honestly the top 1% of the 22s, where, I coached a team there, and, the games I wasn't coaching, I was recruiting, where, those guys like, all right, I'm going to probably watch that kid play on ESPN in a couple of years. And there's also like, we look for the kids that are going to fall through the cracks, the kid that might not pass the eye test, looks 25 years old at 16 with huge muscles, a full beard, the kid that's a very skilled player, maybe a little bit undersized at 16, which, that happens to so many kids around the country, who's going to fall through those division 1 cracks. And, those are the guys we love to take, are the guys that are skilled to play at D1, but that just get overlooked.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I think it's maybe starting to level itself out a little bit, but for a while there, when Division 1 programs were committing 8th and 9th graders, again, not because that was wrong or bad, everybody has an opinion on that, but like you said, a kid might not hit a growth spurt until he's 17, 18 or whatever. And I think that helped build Division 2 and Division 3, because there were like a lot of great players that maybe just didn't have the athletic build, and they kind of, like you said, got overlooked. Like, hey, yeah, he's got a good right and left hand, but it's just not big enough. So I'm just going to cross him off my list as a 9th grader. And it's like, well, there's a lot of time until they're going to get there. And I think that not only helped Division 2 and Division 3, but also kind of the lower tier Division 1 programs. And now you're seeing more parity, across the board. But is there, I guess, kind of to twist it a little bit, what's one thing as a coach that you see kind of like most incoming freshmen is like how do I want to phrase this? Like what's missing? Like what's the thing where you're like, all right, this guy's a typical high school player and he's got to do this to start becoming a college player. Do you know what, did I phrase that right?
Yeah. I think it has to do with the speed of the game. I remember that as a freshman, going to my first fall practice, like, holy crap, these guys move so fast. They move the ball so fast. Where, high school when I played, there was no shot clock. It's let's move the ball around for a minute or two. Get our offensive set. Let's burn some time and let's get the best look possible. But then, even though the shot clock didn't come a little bit later in the college, it was just the athleticism and just kind of the speed of the game that college is played at. And I think that's just always a thing that's tough for college freshmen to get used to. And I think that there's a lot of other things that college freshmen need to get used to. Some guys are, the man at their school where the offense runs through them and, they touch the ball. Like the offense is going through Johnny every single time. It's get the ball to him. He's going to dodge. If he's not scoring, he's feeding. And, sometimes they need to, I don't want to say humble themselves, but I think they need to adjust to a college offense where everyone's important in a cog and, kind of that individualistic aspect gets dropped. And it's not because they think they're the man or anything like that. It's just because that's how they played in high school. So I would just say it's a big thing for freshmen, kind of that separation between returners and new guys is one, the speed of the game, and two is just adjusting from how you played in high school to how a college works.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that because again, I can only comment on like Minnesota high school lacrosse because what I watch, but like let's take, alpha male midfielder or attackman in Minnesota on a high school team. And for, every 10 dodges that they take, 8 out of 10 times they're shooting it.
Mm-hmm.
8 out of 10 times the guy who dodges the guy who takes a shot. It's probably flipped in college is like 8 out of 10 times is the guy who initiates is 8 out of 10 times not going to be taking a shot. It might even be more like 9.5 out of 10 times, depending on if you really looked at it, but just for simplicity's sake. And I think, like you said, that's a big adjustment, especially for a guy that is always winning his matchup every time in high school, has pretty much ultimate green light from coach to just be like, you just do whatever you want. Like, and like when you get to college and there are intricate sets and the coaches are spending a lot of time trying to put these things in to beat a good defense. And like, yeah, I still might win my matchup and have an okay look, but that's not what we're going for. We're trying to find, a solid shot, a high percentage shot. And that means we have to actually pass the ball a couple times before somebody shoots.
Yeah, that's our thing is like you hit the nail on the head. Like we love high percentage shots. Obviously if you can beat your guy like down the alley and rip a shot, like that's awesome. And we're not gonna knock that in the game whatsoever. But we're looking for the guy that's gonna dodge hard down the alley, draw that slide, move it through X, and then work the ball around and kind of get the defense rotating. Those are the unsung heroes in college. And I think that happens to a lot of midfielders. You see in high school, top midfielders throughout the country will post 60, 70 points. And then when they get to college, you're posting 20 to 30 points. And that's a very successful season for a college midfielder because the talent is just so spread out. And if you can be that guy who's going to draw the slide and move the ball through X, skip pass, or whatever it is, your name's not necessarily going to be in the stat sheet every single time, but you're one of the most important players in the offense.
Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, like you said, it's humbling because, a lot of players, they just want the ball in their stick, but there's one ball and there's 6 guys on offense. So you're not going to have the ball in your stick, most of the time. And, I think people do forget, like when you're going from high school to college or even from youth lacrosse to high school, it's like, hey, there's other people here that have been here a while and are just as good, if not better than you, and have earned their time. And, it's kind of up to you to say like, how can I fit in to make the team better? And that might not be what I want to do, but if it's something that I can do well, then, we're going to have success as a team. So, yeah, that's interesting. I think, a lot of coaches would echo the same thing of just the speed of the game and like going deeper in like lacrosse IQ is it's not just one and done. There's a lot more on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%, especially with that whole like, how can I fit the role best of the team? Like this past fall, we have one player, very skilled. He's probably the most in shape player in our team. And, he's just always kind of cracking that, third line guy to second line guy. And, we asked him, we were thinking, how would you like to play defensive mid? You'd be great on the wings. You'd be great on defense. You're a strong kid, super fast, super conditioned. You can push transition. And like he cut us off. He was like, yeah, 100%. Whatever I have to do to get on the field. And I think that's awesome. It just shows a maturity sometimes when you get to college. You play for a couple of years and you become a man. You're not the 17, 18-year-old boy when you show up. Now you're 20, 21, 22, whatever it is, where in high school, I think a lot of guys' egos would be hurt if you said, hey, how would you think about switching to defensive midfielder? Because I feel like a lot of high school is like, oh, D-midi, like I suck, like all that type of stuff. But D-middies are like the fullbacks of the team. Like the guys whose names aren't going on the stat sheet, but the absolute dogs. Like they're in the trenches every single time.
Yeah.
I've been parading around only on social media, but I've been pushing to have a short stick D-midi, like all-state, all-American, whatever in Minnesota. Like there needs, if there's a Fogo, if there's a goal, D-midi needs to be on that list. I've been pushing for that. So I'm just going to throw that out there again tonight. D-midi, there needs to be awards for that.
Yeah, 100%. One of my best friends from college was a defensive midfielder and absolute stud. He was like the clearing machine type of thing, so reliable when it came to defense and like pushing transition, all that type of stuff. But I will say that he could not hit water if he fell off a boat. I think in practice he'd miss every single time in a game. When he'd strip the guy, get a CT, pick up a ground ball, and push transition. Every time he wound up for a shot, everyone was just kind of getting hyped on the sidelines, thinking he was going to go in, but he missed by 10 yards every time.
Possession shot champion.
To kind of go off of what you've been saying about, different guys doing, jumping on rolls, is your coaching philosophy or your program's philosophy, are you, looking for guys to fit the system, or do you guys kind of adjust your system to fit your players?
I would say it's a healthy mix. We kind of have, we're not like you see in the NFL, like he's a system quarterback. Like this is the system we run. Like we have systems in place, and that's just because we believe that's going to put us in the best position possible to win games. But then we also run 2 LSMs. That's something that teams don't really do, where our guys go 1 for 1, and we call him like the 2-headed dragon, because we have one guy that's super finesse. He's not the like bulkiest guy on the planet, but he picks off every single pass, and he's going to get you on a nice can opener check. And then we have our other guy who's going to like make contact with you and then push transition, get a goal, get an assist, all that type of stuff, where we work around our players, to an extent. It's not like, all right, he wants to do this, we're going to change everything for him. But we have a ton of guys that came in as attackmen or came in as midfielders or just kind of swap position, because we're going to put the best guys in the game, obviously, to get W's. At the end of the day, we want to win, and that's huge to us. But we also love to reward playing time and reward hard work. So guys that he might be the 4th attackman, and he's a great player, and he's just not that he's not there to start. It's just the offense is working with those 3 guys. We don't want to break up chemistry. Or 3 defensemen, we don't want to break up chemistry. So those just kind of guys that are right on the cusp, we're going to reward them with playing time. We'll run them through the box. Whatever it is, just to get them on the field, and especially if they're younger, to get them experience.
Are you a O coach? You're the D coach?
No. So it's funny. I was a attackman back, like / midfielder in college, and I am the goalie coach and face-off coach. I mostly work with the face-off guys, and I mean, I love it. During my job interview, they kind of said like, these are the 2 positions that, you're going to work with. And I straight up told them, I was like, I was not a face-off guy. I was not a goalie, but I will learn every single thing there is to know about the goalie and face-off positions, put this team in the best position possible. I love it. I love working with the face-off guys. They're just the absolute dogs of the team. The guys that, kind of don't get any recognition at all, but are the most important part of the game when it comes to possessions. If you have a dominant face-off guy, your team's controlling the ball for the game. And if you have a great goalie, it's just going to take back those possessions where, you lose the ball on offense, you got a stud goalie in the cage. I mean, we just graduated, I think, a 2-time All-American or whatever he is. And he was just an absolute rock for us. And those times, you lose an offensive possession, it happens. But when you have an absolute stud in the cage, he's going to get you those possessions back.
Yeah. Our last episode that we just posted today was all about goalies. Goalie coach is the greatest job in lacrosse. I love training goalies. I didn't play goalie, and so I had to delegate that to someone that actually knew kind of what they were doing. But I know enough obviously to do it, but we have a specialist now. But like PMAC and I both kind of go back there when Aaron's working, and we're like, hey, do you need any help? You need any shooters? It's like, just getting out there, as a former offensive player myself, it's like the next best thing is to be the goalie coach, because you get to shoot on them and just get to be part of that. So that's cool. And it's fun to learn kind of another aspect of the game too. PMAC actually is kind of our resident face-off coach at the facility, and he didn't take face-offs, but he kind of has his whole thing with his face-off guys that he does, and he likes how they grind. And so, yeah, that's cool. To have another opportunity to have a different outlook on the game and not just do what you did in high school and college.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I just took such a deep dive into those positions and just accepted them and just loved them for positions that I never coached or played before. And I work with my face-off guys a lot. And I think it was like my second or third week at St. Lawrence, and we'd break it down on team, hard work, whatever it was. And one day I was like, do we want a name for the unit? Like Syracuse got the sandbox or whatever it is, and not to copy them or whatever. I was just like, do we want to break it down whatever you guys want to call themselves? And like, all right, we'll give it a night to think of it. And they come back the next day and they go, we want to be called the Herd. And I was like, why is that? And they go, because we're a bunch of animals. And since that, it became such like a cult on our team is the Herd, where our face-off guys, D-middies that are on the wings and our LSMs, we'll break it down the Herd all the time. And it's just, we took the face-off position, to another level. I feel like I challenged it. Obviously, COVID shut the season down, but I challenged them in the beginning of the year. I said, I want us to be the top unit in the Liberty League, which is our conference. And I said to be a top 5 unit in Division III. And I think the trend we were going as a team, as a unit last year, I think that those were just two, goals that we could have 100% accomplished. I mean, I'm sure it's you guys, you never really scout in the face-off position. It's kind of like it's just left to the individual, where this guy does this, and the coach trusts him, so-and-so do this, and that's how you're going to beat him. But we would hold film sessions, before and after practice, especially before the Cortland game. That was a bit of a personal game for me. Cortland was my rival in college, and, there was no love lost between Plattsburgh and Cortland. So,
What year did you graduate?
I graduated in 2019.
So you play against Terrence Haggerty? You went
Yeah.
to How did he do at Cortland? He was at Detroit for a year, but he
was like a 2 or 3-time All-American.
Wasn't he balling there? That's what I thought.
Yeah, I think he got drafted too.
He did?
Yeah, he definitely Plattsburgh. He definitely put in a lot of points against us, but when we played him, we held him to a man-up goal.
Yeah, that's not bad.
But before the Cortland game, like I said, not that I had my own personal vendetta. It was just kind of that motivation, that fire inside of me that I was like, I'm going to stay late every single day to put my guys in the best position possible to beat Cortland. Like, they're a great program. They're a great team. Yeah. At the time, I think it was like we were 14 in the country and they were like 17, 18. So it was like a top 20 game. It was awesome. We won 10-5, and they had a All-American, like 2 or 3-time All-American faceoff guy who was just an absolute stud. And our guy was great too, but we studied his moves for a week straight. After practice, before practice, we studied how their wings played. We studied how their wings push fast breaks. We studied how their wings what they would do when they lose. We trapped their face-off guys a lot. We just kind of took an absolute deep dive against Cortland, into that position. We did that for Geneseo and Potsdam as well. And unfortunately, the season got cut short. But we're going to be doing that this year as well.
Yeah, I was in LSM, so yeah, like every week it was like, all right, what are we doing the wings, and are we, head side, or is LSM going to go butt end side, and and like what are they doing, and so yeah, it's I enjoy that part of the game. I hope, well, yeah, I think it's an absolute joke that there's people out there. I think it's the loud minority that want to get rid of the face-off.
It's the people that want to get rid of the face-off are the guys that don't know lacrosse, that turn it on ESPN for Final Four weekend and see TD Erlin win every single face-off and go, oh, this isn't fair. Like, the other team's not getting the ball. Like, yeah, like you can say that's unfair, but sorry, they have one of the best face-off guys of all time. Like, that's just the sport. Like, are you going to complain to take LeBron out of basketball when he scores 40 points a game against the Clippers? It's, I think if lacrosse ever put basketball rules in, it'd be the stupidest thing ever.
Well, like, okay, if there's a goalie that gets too good and he's saving 95% of the shots, like, are they going to say, okay, we got to get rid of all the goalies?
Yeah, let's just get rid of Michael Sowers out of the game too. He scores too much.
Yeah.
After 3 goals of an attackman, he's got to play on his offhand the rest of the game. Sorry, I agree. It's that could be another separate episode on that. We've seen some high school leagues across the country this year taking face-offs out because of COVID. And does that open up a can of worms? Like it's crazy, but no, I mean, we really appreciate you kind of giving us a kind of a
2 more.
Oh, you got more questions?
Well, are we gonna do the down the alley question?
I was gonna go to down the alley. I want to respect his time, but if you have one more quick one here.
So I was gonna say we should do the down the alley question, and then
I got all the time.
The small business or like the restaurants.
Yeah. So, Yep. So we, our podcast is called Down the Alley, obviously kind of a play on words, but we ask people at the end of every episode or at end of every interview, what's your alley? And it's just kind of like more of a peel back of the onion of like, what's your thing? What are you into? And you can really take it any way you want. And it kind of comes off the term like, oh, that's right, right up that guy's alley, right down that guy's alley. And so, it could be anything, but what's your alley?
I would say I'm pretty big into fitness and all that type of stuff. And that's something, I run our team's strength conditioning, and that's something I love to do not just because I love fitness or anything like that. It's just, I like to stay in shape and, kind of set an example for those guys and, kind of, motivate them a little bit. Like, I'll hop in the weight room with them. I'll go on a run with them. And like, I try and beat them. I try and lift more than them and do all that to try and light a fire under their ass. Like, hey, coaches, I don't want to be in less shape than my coaches. And it's just kind of, I like to keep up that healthy lifestyle and fitness, nutrition, all that type of good stuff is just to set a good example for my players.
Fitness wise, when I was in college, I was under a couple of different, strength and conditioning guys who had different, philosophies. We did one guy, was more of an Olympic lifter. The other guy was just like, we're going to do the basics and we're just going to get after it and just compete like in the weight room. So, like what's your kind of philosophy and, what do you guys, what do you try to get after, in the weight room?
My thing is like, I design our lifts and our condition, like my guys don't like me too much when we condition during practice. It's hard and, it always is, but our lifts, I design it, I tell them I'm making these lifts to make us the best lacrosse players. You're not going to be the biggest guy on the beach where guys like, girls are turning heads and looking at you. Like, I'm going to make you the best lacrosse player through our lifts. I like to do different types of functional workouts that's going to work your core, work your legs, and obviously your other muscles as well, but that's going to make you a better lacrosse player. How many times are you bench pressing on the lacrosse field? Bench press is obviously a key thing that's going to get you stronger, but, guys that are hopping in the weight room and like, oh, I need to put up 225 every single day. Like, yeah, that's cool that you can stack up a bunch of plates on the bench, but who's going to be the guy that's front squatting, back squatting, doing box jumps, doing planks for 2 minutes, all these type of work. I like to get the guys' heart rates up as well. So I'll do, conventional lifts like deadlift, squat, a couple other things, and I'll have them jump rope for 2 minutes, or I'll have them, jumping jacks or hop on to do treadmill sprints to get their heart rate up, and then have them jump back into another workout.
Did you major in like exercise science or anything like that? Or is it just something you fell into?
It's something I fell into. I majored in public relations and marketing, something completely different. But post college, I actually just kind of fell in love with fitness, where I was just kind of, I was like, I don't ever want to get out of shape or anything like that, where, I don't have lacrosse and these lacrosse lifts to keep me in shape. I don't have a, strength program anymore. So I just kind of took such a deep dive into it, where, when I like something, it's what my parents have said since I've been a little kid. When I like something, I go all out on it. So when I kind of had fitness as a passion, I would look up all the exercise sciences, study different diets and nutrition, different types of workouts for athletes, non-athletes, and all that type of stuff, where I always like to change how I train. And like, actually this past summer, I like do triathlons and train for Ironmans and stuff like that now.
Sweet. That's that sounds pretty intense, and obviously it's nice to have one of the coaches on the staff have that the passion to want to be involved in that, because it is something that to some people that might not be interesting, but to you it is. So, and it certainly adds value to any lacrosse program, but to have you there doing your lacrosse stuff, but also that it's kind of double whammy.
Yeah, I mean, like there's been times where I focus on nutrition a lot. I say it's, 60% nutrition, 40% working out. That's just kind of my mantra. It's kind of, a thing that like people hate saying it. When you say your body's a car and you got to put the right fuel in it. People hate hearing that, but it's kind of the right thing.
Yeah.
Like where I've had like these little, like, I don't want to say seminars, but these little like group sessions with guys on our team where, they're like, coach, like, I think I'm eating right, but, I'm not putting on a muscle. I'm not cutting weight, whatever it is. And, they kind of laid out their fitness and nutrition goals. I'll take a day or two to digest it and, I'll come up with a plan for them. And that's just like stuff I love to do. Obviously it's not required in my job, but I think that's just something I wish I had back in college. And it's not because I didn't have the resources, just because I didn't think it was that important. It was like, I'm going to practice and lift, I can go eat mac and cheese and a sandwich after practice. And like, there's no shame in that whatsoever. I miss the dining hall days as well. But some guys, like want to cut weight or put on 5-10 pounds of muscle. So they have specific questions. I just love sitting down with them and giving the right answers.
So obviously, you're watching, your macros and your eating, you're eating right and really focusing on your fitness. But what is, on a cheat day, what are you going for? Like, what's your vice if you had one?
Oof. I would say Chinese food.
Chinese food.
I would say Chinese food on like a lazy Sunday or anything like that. I'm getting a ton of General Tso's chicken and like 100 crab rangoons. That's just kind of my vice.
Yeah.
And I think that leads perfectly into how our last question of our episodes right now. With the different shutdowns and things, restaurants are getting impacted, pretty badly. So would love to hear, do you guys have a local, like, mom and pop Chinese spot that's like your go-to?
Yeah, so the local place is A1 Kitchen, but I would say my personal favorite, local shop here is Little Italy Pizza.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
not
Talk
like,
about both. What's your order? Give us the deep dive review on your two spots.
so being from Long Island, I'm sure you guys have all made fun of us and, heard the jokes that we have the best pizza, the best bagels, and all that type of stuff. And, not being anywhere near Long Island, I'm a little bit of harsher critic on pizza, but Little Italy's got some great pizza, and they also have a great sandwich. It's called the Saints Lax, and it's a chicken parm, but instead of marinara, it's vodka sauce. Awesome. You ever pass through Cannes, I'd 100% recommend it. Got some real good pizza too. The buffalo chicken's my go-to, as I'm sure a lot of other people's are, but it's honestly pretty awesome. And then with A1, the Chinese, always got to get the crab rangoons. That's I would say is my vice is crab rangoons. I'll normally go with some chicken chow mein or some General Tso's. So shout out to A1 in Little Italy.
Yeah, there you go. A little free advertising to the hundreds of listeners that we have. Maybe 100. But yeah, obviously like PMax said, with COVID and some of the restrictions and things like that, small businesses, but restaurants in particular, are pretty, impacted pretty heavily. And, so when you share this with, your clients or not your clients, your network, they'll know what you're talking about, and hopefully that gets some people in, maybe they'll do a crab rangoon pizza after hearing this.
I would say that would take a lot of my bank account on Sunday.
There you go. So
yeah,
be RJ, just that's all. PMac, do you have any do you have a shout out before we end here?
I had one saved from last episode, and yeah, I do. 2 locations. There might be I feel like there's 3, but there's 2 that I know of. As far as I know, same company, 2 different families running the 2 locations. Okay. One's next to your taco shop, one's in Rosemount. So Burnsville and Rosemount. Giuseppe's. They catered my groom's dinner about a month ago.
Yep.
Fantastic food, great people, family owned, small little greasy restaurants, just how I like them. So Italian. Yeah, great vibes. I've had so much there. I used to work in Rosemount, and I would go to the Rosemount location, and I just got to know the guy so well. He would, I'd go there for lunch, and he'd be like, "What are you in the mood for today?" And I'd be like, "Just give me your daily special." Like, he's like, "I'll whip something up for you." So I don't even know what I ordered half the time. Because I didn't order it. He's just like, "I got you today." And so I've had a little bit of everything there, and it's never not fantastic. So Giuseppe's, Italian. Their bread. Okay, sorry. One more thing. Their bread with the sauce. It's not sauce. It's like the oils, and olive oil, and I would take a jar home. I would take a jar home and give me a loaf of bread, and it'd be deleted by the end of the night.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think that's good to end. I think that was a passionate shout out there from both you guys. RJ, thank you for coming on, talking a little bit about your program and your background. It's always good to get people that aren't necessarily like suburban Minneapolis, St. Paul people, and just kind of expand, our network and people that grew up with lacrosse in different parts of the country. So we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, 100%. This was a ton of fun, guys. Thanks for having me on. Ever need me back on, just a text away.
Yeah, I think we'll try to get you on maybe like mid-season or something like that. Hopefully, fingers crossed that everything goes well. And so you can maybe just have like a kind of an update on how your season's going, or if you have any new special face-off tricks up your sleeve. So I think that would be kind of a cool follow-up.
We definitely got some stuff up our sleeve this season, so hopefully I'll update you guys with some good news.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Love it. And we'll have to get you to chirp, Brunsville a little bit more next episode too.
All right.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks. Have a good night.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
One more time.